My brain is no longer functioning after I read this book. But we're going to talk about it. I'm going to do my best to talk about it. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. Glad you could be here. Today I'm going to do a book review for you on the three-body problem. This is book 1 in the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy by Cixin Liu. And I'm going to do my best to give you an overview of this. It is going to be spoiler-free, partly because I'm not sure how to discuss this cogently in order to give any spoilers anyway. So it works out great for you guys. If you enjoy this video today, please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to my channel, join my Discord if you want to talk more about this series, and my cat is joining me, so hello Ari. Ari has decided to join us today. Yes, you did, didn't you? Are you gonna talk about this book with me, or are you gonna just let me handle it, huh? Yeah, I don't think you want to talk about the book. Aw. So yeah, anyway, sorry for the distraction. I'm sure you guys love furry friend distractions though, so it's all good. Let's get right to the review. The Three-Body Problem, as I said, is the first book in this series, The Remembrance of Earth's Past, and it is a hard sci-fi novel. And I want to say this right up front, that it is a concept-driven novel. So if you are plot-driven, while there is a plot, or you are character-driven, and there are characters in the story, it does not so heavily focus on either of those as much as it does the concepts. So it is hard science fiction. So if you draw the line at hard sci-fi, you may not like this book. I'll just put that right up front. But give me a chance to talk a little bit about the book and share some of my feelings and thoughts with you and see if you warm up to it, okay? So let's just talk about some basic information about the story. It is set in 2 different time periods in Earth's history, one of which is the era of Red China. So it does take place partly during the era of the heavily communist influenced China, and then the other time period it takes place in is modern day. It follows 2 main characters. There are other characters in the story, but there are really only 2 main POVs, and I do apologize ahead of time. I may not be pronouncing these names correctly, so please bear with me. And if you would like to correct me, if you know the proper way that these are pronounced, please let me know. The first of those is an astrophysics graduate named Ye Wenji, and the other is a nanoscientist named Wang Miao. These 2 are on completely different spectrums at the beginning of the book, but their paths do converge as the story progresses. The book starts off sharing some of the backstory of Ye Wenji, who witnesses the brutal beating and murder of her father by Red Guard extremists. So these are communist radicals who do not like the things that her father, who is a professor, has been espousing in his lectures, and they end up making him a public spectacle. After this time, she takes on several odd jobs and is eventually taken to work at a secret military facility known as Red Coast. It isn't until much later that she learns that the true purpose behind Red Coast is to connect with alien life. And then, of course, there is Wang Miao, and he is a nanoscientist working on high-tech, top-secret nanotechnology, and he comes into contact with Ye Wenji when he starts seeing mysterious numbers appear in the forefront of his vision, almost as if it were a countdown. And he has come into contact with her via a colleague of his who suggested that he go and visit her on occasion because her daughter had just died under some mysterious circumstances. As you get to know more about their backstories, Yi Wenji's specifically, you start to see the unfolding of a plan that has been going on for decades, and it involves an initial communication with other sentient life elsewhere in the universe, and the plan of certain groups to embrace them and bring them to Earth to take over society. And it's just a fascinating story. It really is. I've seen a lot of reviews talking about this book, some of them negative because of what you might call info dumping. There is a lot of technical scientific material in this story, but I would not necessarily say it's info dumping. To me, it was just more of building the world and helping to establish the credibility of the scientists that are working on everything and trying to put all the pieces together to figure out what's going on. There is one aspect of the story that involves a virtual reality game that has been set up as a propaganda piece, although they do not realize until much later that it is actually a propaganda piece to prepare the human race for the advent of some of these alien life forms. So it's really fascinating the way that was woven into the story. And eventually some of these groups come to light, and they try to recruit Wang Miao into their ranks, and he eventually attends a meeting, and all of these things start coming to light and blowing their minds as well as mine. It's a very difficult book to talk intelligently about just because there is so much information. Aside from that, the prose was really, really good. I was impressed that with such a technical book, it was written in such a way that is easily digestible. So while there may be things that are talked about in the book that you don't fully understand or comprehend, maybe it's too sciencey for you, there were times that it felt a little bit too sciencey for me, but it's written in such a way that is easily digestible, and you can kind of figure out what it's talking about just by the context of what you're reading. Sometimes a lot of things that we read are just context. You know, we kind of have to figure out what's going on based on the context around the different sections that we're reading. First of all, let's talk about the things that I did like, because there was a lot to like in this story. It was very unique. It was an interesting take on alien life. This is a different design of aliens that I have ever seen in any other book I've read. But what I have read is completely different from this book. And it deals with a lot of great thought-provoking questions, not the least of which is the inhumanity of humans toward other humans. Because the groups of people who want to bring these aliens to our Earth and to have them take over society are doing so because they feel that the human race has so deeply lost its way and become so utterly useless and horrible that we need an outside force to come and save us. So it really deals with the inhumanity of humans toward other humans, and we're just fed up with it. We don't care who comes to save us, but we need somebody to save us from ourselves. That's really the core philosophy of these groups that are trying to bring the aliens to our planet. And then the other side of the coin is, of course, even though, yeah, humans aren't great to each other, do we really want to take the risk of bringing in some unknown outside force, knowing nothing about them, knowing not what their technology is, what kind of devastation they could be? We don't know if they're going to be peaceful or if they're just going to want to eradicate us from the earth. And those realities become very real as you continue reading the book. Things come to light because you do get to see the perspectives of the alien race. There's whole chapters that deal just with conversations among the alien race as they are preparing to approach Earth. It's a fascinating discussion. Will they look at us as equals, or look at us as some race that's worth their time, or will they look at us as bugs? So it's really about the concepts. It's about figuring out what is best for humanity and figuring out how other planets might work and what they can bring to our lives, what they can teach us, and yet the dangers that are inherent with that as well. And it also attempts to answer the question as well, why have we not encountered alien life yet? I love that the aliens in the story don't talk in their own language. It's basically written for us in English, even though it's understood that they are talking in their own language. So just a really, really fascinating tale. The three-body problem gets its name from a dilemma in astrophysics of trying to determine a point in time where three different particles or planets will end up in time and space and in alignment with each other. This is studied in the book via the game, which I mentioned before ends up being a propaganda piece. But the game has a particular world that sometimes has three different suns. And if they are in alignment with each other in a certain period of time, it can destroy that world. And so even though it's a game, it's designed to teach humans about this actual alien race that the game is based off of. So it's really pretty fascinating to see the science behind it, even though I'll admit I didn't understand all of it. So that can be on the pros as well as the cons. And so now we'll kind of transition to the cons, because while some of the science was pretty fascinating and I understood some of it, I was also kind of baffled, and by the end of the book I was like, wow, that was a really great book, and I can't think straight. So it does get a little overwhelming with all the information that's thrown at you. I don't consider it an info dump. I just consider it a little bit too much information for my brain to handle. So be aware, there is that piece of it. If I had a con that I really wanted to focus on, it would be the game. There were times when they were talking about this virtual reality game. There are whole chapters devoted to it. It was a little old, honestly. It got to be a little boring, a little bit tedious. I was like, okay, can we just kind of wrap this up, move on to the actual story part of this book? So yeah, if you are not really interested in the VR game, it can kind of take you out of the book a little bit. But that wasn't necessarily a deal breaker for me. Overall, I thought this book was just fantastically done. I know this has been a very rambly review for me, and part of that is because I'm kind of at a loss how best to collect my thoughts about the book. I highly recommend you read this book. As far as my rating for it goes, I would say it's shiny. You know, I don't think I'm going to put it in my hoard. I probably wouldn't read it again, or at least I don't think I would. It's definitely not going in my soaring category, but it was really, really good. So if I give something a shiny rating, it means I still liked a lot of things about the book, and I would definitely recommend people to try it out. Especially if you are a fan of sci-fi, you need to read this book. I wholeheartedly recommend that you at least give it a shot, because it is just fascinating. The science in it is, while not spoon-fed to you, it's written in such a way that it's palatable. It's easily read and digested, even though you may not understand all the concepts that they talk about. It's pretty entertaining. There's some good humor in the book as well, so that kind of helps liven the mood. And the prose is very, very accessible. So I definitely think that is a win. I am going to continue reading this series. I'm very interested to see what happens in the next two books. Dark Forest is the second book in the series, and Death's End is the final book in the series. And I am going to read both of them. That is the plan. I don't know when, but I'm eventually going to read them. And I'm really happy that this ended up being my patron pick for the first quarter of 2023. I am so happy I read it, and I highly recommend that you do as well. Let me know in the comments, have you read this book? Did my review make no sense to you? Let me know that too. As you can tell, it's a lot of stuff to communicate, a lot of ideas and concepts here. You know, if you're looking for a really character-driven story, it may not be for you. But I would encourage you to at least give it a shot. So there we have it, guys. Make sure you read more books. I will talk to you soon.